Hey, it's Lyndon here, and today I want to empower you to understand major scales a little bit better and empower you to work out any major scale, no matter what it is. And in order to do that, we need to understand the gaps between the notes of a major scale. So we call the gaps between notes, the spaces or the distance between the notes. We've got a word for it, and the word is intervals. But it is effectively just the space between the notes of a major scale. But in order for you to understand that, I need to make sure that you understand the intervals of notes in general. And so I've made a video on the piano, which is in my other room that you can't see, of me demonstrating the gaps between all of the notes. We really need to be able to understand where the semitones and tones lie first. It's not difficult, to be honest. It's just whenever two white notes are divided by a black note, it's a semitone from the white note to the black note. You'll see in the video. Now, I must say, in the video, there's a little bit of blurring right at the start on some of the keys as my camera's autofocus was going mental for some reason, which is beyond me. So please excuse that, and let me know if you think I should do the whole thing again. So in music, we're really fascinated about the gaps between notes. The gaps between notes are super significant, and we go around measuring the gaps between notes, and we have names for them. So as you know, this is C on a piano. So you've got your two black notes, a space, and then three black notes and a space, and then that pattern repeats up all over the keyboard. And if this is C, and then this note is D, and between these two notes there is a black note, and that black note is like C up a bit, or D down a bit. So this black note has two names, C up a bit, or D down a bit. And then this note is D, and this note is E, and then between those two there is another black note, so that must be D up a bit or E down a bit. The thing is that we don't use the terms up a bit or down a bit in music. We have our own name for that, and if it's up a bit, it's sharp, and if it's down a bit, it's flat. If you let the air out of the tyres in somebody's car down, apart from getting a punch on their face, you've flattened. It goes flat. Slightly down is flat. Slightly up in music is sharp. So this note here, between C and D, instead of calling it C up a bit, we call it C sharp or D flat. Now the distance from C to C sharp is a half tone or a semitone, a half tone. And the distance between C sharp and D is also a half tone or a semitone. So two halves make a whole. The distance between C and D is a whole tone. And then equally, the distance between D and this note, D sharp or E flat, is a semitone, and from E flat to E is another semitone. So the distance between D and E is a whole tone. But look out, look out! The distance between E and F, can you see there isn't a black note here? So the distance between E and F, you might think it's a tone, but actually it's a semitone. I keep looking up there because there's a camera out there. Between E and F is a semitone. Then the distance between F and G, well, it's got a black note in the middle, so between F and this note, F sharp or G flat, that's a semitone. Between there and there, it's another semitone, so between F and G is a whole tone. Between G and A, there's a note in the middle, so that's a whole tone. Between A and B, there's a note in the middle, A sharp or B flat, so that's a whole tone between A and B. And between B and C, look out, right? There's no black note, so it must be another semitone. It's a semitone between B and C, and this is massively significant. By the way, these notes that have two names like C sharp and D flat, a really good question that you might be thinking. If it's called C sharp and D flat, how do you know what to call it? Well, that's a very good question. And the answer is, it's just like Batman. Batman has two names. He has Batman, and when he's not being Batman, his name is Bruce Wayne. So how do you know what to call him? Well, it depends on the context in which you find him. If someone's being mugged down a dark alleyway, you're going to see him as Batman. And if you're sipping champagne at the industrialist's party, you'll see him as Bruce Wayne. But either way, it will be crystal clear what you're supposed to call him. And that's exactly the same in music. Whether you call this note C sharp or D flat is going to be very, very obvious, at least related to major scales. It will be super obvious to you what they're supposed to be called, depending on the context in which you find them, or him. If you find Batman, just ask him, because he knows, probably. So it will be super obvious when the time comes, I promise. Okay, so now hopefully you understand all of the gaps between the notes, all of the intervals and where they lie. What's massively significant is between E and F and between B and C, there's only a semitone, where between every other note there is always, between every other white note on a piano, there's always a tone. So here's the thing, let's take a look at C major and measure the gaps between each one of the notes. And there's going to be a sheet which I'll either put up here or at the end of the video, but either way you'll see it. So let's have a look at the notes of C major. So you've got C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And between C and D, we've got a whole tone. And this is really, really significant. So you've got a whole tone between C and D. Then between D and E, you've also got a whole tone. But between E and F, look out, right? Because you've only got a semitone. Because if you have a look on the piano, there's no black note between E and F, so that is one of the places where you need to look out. Between F and G, you've got a whole tone again. And between G and A, you've got a whole tone. And between A and B, you've got a whole tone. But look out, between the last two notes of C major, which are B back to C, you've only got a semitone. And this is hugely significant, because if we can take on board this formula of tone, tone, then a semitone, then a tone, another tone, one more tone, and a semitone, I'm here to let you know that all major scales are always follow that pattern. They all follow that recipe or that formula. So if you understand that one formula, then you can work out any major scale. Now there's two laws of major scales, and one law is that you can only have one of each letter name in any major scale. So if you look at your scales, they're always written out in alphabetically sequential order. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. If you look at G major, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, F, but still F, G. And D, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. All of the scales, they all have only one of each letter name, and this is really important. So if you're going to work out a scale like B major, you would always start by going B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then you would measure the distances between each one of those notes. So instead of being B to C, it would be B to C sharp, because you've now created a tone and you need a tone and a semitone. So it'd be B, C sharp, D sharp, then E, then F sharp, then G sharp, then A sharp, and then a semitone to B. But all of the scales run sequentially, alphabetically sequentially. Another law of major scales is that you can have sharps or flats, but not both. You can't have both sharps and flats in a major scale. In other types of scale, maybe you can, and in music in general, you can mix sharps and flats, but in major scales, you can't. Look at your major scales. They either have sharps or they have flats, or they're a scale like F sharp major, which you can write out two ways, but it's either all sharps or all flats. So that's two laws of major scales, which is really, really important. And all of your major scales follow that pattern. So if you can take that on board, you can work out any major scale, which is super powerful, because major scales are the basis of everything. If you let's put it another way. If you don't understand major scales, you can't really understand any of the modes that come off major scales, and that's hugely significant because the modes go up to make lovely chords, and the chords make harmonic structures that make jazz tunes, and you need to understand those if you're going to be able to improvise through a chord chart. So if you don't understand the major scale from which the modes come, then it's going to be really, really tricky, if not totally impossible. Melodies that we love to play are made up of the sequence of notes in a major scale, and that's what we mean by something's in a particular key. If something's in the key of C, it's using the notes of C. It doesn't have to only use those notes, but it's kind of rooted, fundamentally rooted in the notes of C, but it can have other notes as well. So take this formula, this tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, and really measure all of your scales and see how it always follows. Then you can work out a major scale really, really easily, and I think it just helps with your general learning. So I hope that was useful to you. As always, please leave your comments in the comments. Leave any feedback that you've got, put them in the comments below, and any suggestions for content. And thank you so much for watching my videos, and please like and subscribe and all that YouTubey stuff. Okay, thanks again. Take care. Bye.